From 2016, I have moved to a good home. I'll leave behind the ice house. Dan Andrews would rather I lived with an ice addict, and that you should too. For some, at the moment, the sex party has more credibility. From 2015, Princess born, sister to George, daughter to William and Kate. Nepal earthquake, Nepalese disappointed that local politicians aren't appearing as people die from secondary issues, like a lack of drinking water. International politicians are high profile. Floyd Mayweather won a dance contest. Manny Pacquiao was the better, more dangerous fighter. The private dancer won on points. Australian Kangaroos played Kiwis in Australian Rugby League. It was a game of two halves. In the first half, Kiwis were a brilliant attacking team. In the second half, New Zealand were a brilliant defensive team. The 26-12 score flattered Australia. New Zealand deserved winners. On this day, Mayan King Bird Jaguar IV assumed the throne 10 years after the death of his father, suggesting he needed to fight to claim the throne. When he passed, building work ceased. In 1715, Edmund Halley predicted a total eclipse within 4 minutes accuracy. In 1808, Sweden lost her fortress of Seaborg to Russia. It later became part of Helsinki. On the same day, Madrid rebels who had arisen on May the 2nd were executed by French. Hundreds of Madrid citizens were shot, and Francisco Goya painted the scene, titled 3rd of May, 1808. In 1830, the Canterbury and Whitstable Railway opened, being the first steam-hauled passenger service to offer seasonal tickets and a trip through a tunnel. In 1877, Labatt Park, the oldest continually operated baseball field in the world, had her first game. In 1913, the first full-length Indian feature film was released, named Raja Harishchandra. It was a film about sacrifice. In 1915, the poem In Flanders Field was written by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. John, a Canadian, had just buried a friend. He dropped the poem, but others picked it up, and it became the best recited poem of the war. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that marks our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from the failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. In 1921, West Virginia became the first state to legislate a sales tax, but they didn't implement it for many years because they hadn't worked out the detail. In 1928, Japanese atrocities were noted in Jinan, China. In 1937, Gone with the Wind won a Pulitzer for fiction. In 1948, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Shelley v. Kramer that covenants prohibiting the sales of real estate to blacks and other minorities were legally unenforceable. In 1951, the United States Senate Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees began their closed-door hearing into the dismissal of General Douglas MacArthur by U.S. President Harry Truman. In 1952, the Kentucky Derby was televised nationally for the first time on CBS Network. 1957, Walter O'Malley, the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers, agreed to move the team from Brooklyn, New York to Los Angeles, California. In 1960, the off-Broadway musical comedy, The Fantastics, opened in New York City's Greenwich Village, eventually becoming the longest-running musical of all time. Also 1960, the Anne Frank House Museum opened in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Also 1960, the European Free Trade Association was established. 1963, the police force in Birmingham, Alabama, switched tactics and responded with violent force to stop the Birmingham campaign protesters. Images of the violent suppression were transmitted worldwide, bringing newfound attention to the African American civil rights movement.